presenting the full gang of 20.
So we're really happy that we can finally introduce this piece of work to all of you. And like Orijit said, even more happier that it's come out in Hindi well in time. And I think a month down the line, we'll be having the Marathi and the Bengali version as well, and many more languages to come. So we're really happy. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. I think gratitude is due to Samarth and Orijit for consistently working on this and coming out with such a nuanced piece, because I think as researchers of political economy, as people working on international finance, as people working on, things that are traditionally very difficult to translate into graphic novels. I mean, when we started conceptualizing it, it was very difficult for us. I still remember the very first call with Orijit, and we were all very clueless. Like, okay, this is the set of issues that we want to discuss. And then we're like, okay, how do we exactly go about it by not losing out the nuance out of it, our research out of it? And I think slowly and steadily, the 1 year long process that Jimmy just talked about, it has come out in a really good manner, and we're really happy. And I think thanks are due to Salil also for coming in at the right time and giving us a brilliant Hindi version of it. I would also like to thank Debashish Karmarkar and Anil Atlekar, who are not here, but they are currently working on the Marathi and the Bengali version. And again, nothing is lost in translation, and this is something I can proudly say. I think we started this process a year ago, and that was typically the time when the farmers' protest was at its brink. There were these beautiful stories of resistance that we were listening, and we thought that, okay, what's the big thing? Like when we work on international finance, we try to track all of those flows, monitor, evaluate all of these institutions like the Bretton Woods institution, the multilateral development institutions. We usually ask this question, and especially because we call ourselves a civil society organization, so every work that we do, it has to translate into the grassroots movement, and we constantly keep asking these questions to ourselves. How do we exactly make sense of the things that we work on and translate them to the people working on ground? We help them out that, okay, this is the way the financial flows work. This is how the global capital works. This is how our political economy is constructed. And that's how it, at the end of the day, touches all of our lives on an everyday basis. It's not something at distance. And I think that was one way that even during the farm struggle, we realized that all the clauses that were part of the three farm bills actually came from a FSB, which is the Financial Stability Board, which is one of the G20 bodies. The recommendation came from them. There was another instance of the FRDI bill, which was very valiantly resisted by the civil society organizations working on similar issues. Even for that, I think we found out in our analysis that the recommendations came in from there. And we have a whole list of issues that G20 as an informal club has been instrumental in getting into the nationalistic arenas. And I think it becomes really important for us as people to really connect the struggles on the ground, issues that are happening at the national level with what's happening at the international level. We know that the 2023 presidency comes to India with the second country in the global south, again, not being geographically deterministic, but with the second country in the global south will get this presidency. Currently, Indonesia is in the Troika. And even during Indonesia, when some of us as researchers of international finance, we are trying to look at, okay, what are the agendas that are being put up? Typically, things that are being put up are not in the same length and hue as we would want them, as people on the ground would want it. They're very shimmery, or there's a lot of media blitz and glimmer around it. It's very much the same for the 2023 presidency in India. If you see the Hindu today, there are things being talked about that it's a big day for India. The coming months would be instrumental. the central bankers and the finances, they it's big day for them. There's a lot of things coming around for them, but when we really look at how the civil 20 or the W20 or the G20, how the Sherpas are defining the agendas, we see that lack of nuance in them. We see the lack of people's agenda on them, and I think that was a struggle that that we brought in during the process of this particular comic book. And I think when Orijit talks about the characters, you'll know why certain issues were chosen, why certain characters were given a particular hue and color. And I think that would be the time when I'm really hopeful when all of you guys get the copy, you're able to just relate to it. We're often frustrated by how there's a general lack of coordination, a sense of semi-paralysis in the global politics. And I think you'll see some of that coming into this. So Orijit,
Yeah.
if you could talk about the characters. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
The bearded first.
It's on. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Is it? Are you here? Maybe I can just talk without.
No, you're audible. You were audible.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for coming. It's a real pleasure to see you all here. It's been very interesting working on this book and evolving a way to talk about global finance and issues related to G20 in a way that connects immediately with the young people. My interest in particular was that we should be able to connect to the new generation of young people who are coming in, who are aware, who are actually, I think, in many ways more savvy and aware of things than we were when we were in our 20s or whatever. And yet we live in an age of information glut, and just as we can put out certain points of view, everybody else can also put out points of view. So it's how do you cut through the clutter? How do you cut through and create a more, that was our challenge, to create a distinctive, memorable way of telling a complex story, which has many ramifications. And initially, after Sonal was talking, we had a bunch of discussions. I realized that perhaps satire works really well. There should be a kind of humor and satire that kind of cuts through all the political verbiage that surrounds much of the talk on these issues. So we started working with the idea of anthropomorphic characters in comics. And I think that is not a new strategy. It's been used in comics forever, from Mickey Mouse onwards. But to use them not as cute characters who make us feel happy, but as characters that are equally complex, evil, good, not so good, courageous, cowardly. I mean, all kinds. I mean, bringing in the complexity of human the human emotions and attitudes, and bring that into a space where we're talking about very, let's say, non-emotional issues. I mean, supposedly we're talking about finance. We're talking about global leaders meeting. So the idea of bringing in satire to connect these disparate and the concerns of people who are protesting, the people who are at the receiving end of this global planning that's sort of happening through forums like G20, to bring in their concerns on the same platform with so the use of animal characters kind of idea of that came in or at that point when we started thinking about how best to treat a subject like this. Comrade Yechuri just spoke about the venue that's going to come up and the questions that are being asked about the venue. We imagined a venue in which these animals gather, and there is outside the venue. Inside the venue, it's all very fancy and swanky and all protected with security and everything. Outside the venue, there are a bunch of animals who live in the forest who gathered to protest this what's going on inside, and I don't know if you can read. It's there's some illusion which I couldn't help bringing in, like the venue, the site of the venue is called the Chaipani Lake, and the host prime minister is a peacock with a white beard, and then other animals characters keep coming in, the Korean prime minister, and turn the page. And we start looking at the conversations, also at kind of bringing the conversations down to very almost like a bunch of guys on a well-paid fancy vacation. I mean, that's really what these G20 summits at one level are. A bunch of old guys or women who go on fancy vacations. And so that's the basic setting in which the story unfolds. And meanwhile, the people outside have gathered, the animals of the forest, and they start telling each other their own stories of difficulty, of struggle, of farmers and what they're going through. And it also, so obviously a story like this will capture aspects of so many different things. I mean, not just the protest, but it goes into, let's say, what happened with the Green Revolution and how it impoverished farmers back in the 60s. Or then, can we turn the page? Or, you know, and so it kind of brings in, let's say, not detail, but sort of glimpses of policies that have been forming even long before G20 existed, because this is how global capitalism has been taking over, as we were talking about from the post the Second World War, the rise of capitalism, the rise of the impoverishment of people, the disenfranchisement of people's movements and communities. All of this sort of gets captured in these little side. So there are two narratives going on where people are narrating their own stories and their past,